Hi friends, I hope that you are having a truly wonderful day today. In today's video, we are going to be doing a story time for the Luigi's Mansion Luciano the Jumper saga. As you may know, this particular jump is unusual in a range of senses, not the least of which is that it is a jump that lasts precisely 1 night. I'm going to change the rule just a little bit and say that it is a jump that lasts a full 24 hours, as opposed to simply lasting one particular night. And we are now going to go ahead and dive right on into the story time. Our story begins with Luciano the Jumper phasing into existence in the high-tech laboratory item that they purchased while they were selecting their build right outside of the mansion. We are going to say that they have been here for as long as the mansion has existed, which is not a super long period of time. For those of you who know Luigi's Mansion lore, the mansion appeared practically overnight. In fact, I think it did appear overnight, and it had just enough time to suck up Mario and to transform him into a portrait from his state of being a living person before Luigi arrived just a couple of days at most later. But our particular jumper build for this specific adventure was the Professor origin, and we went all in on the perks and we took several of the items. So we are going to have an older Luciano be the person who takes the place of Professor Egad. I normally would prefer to have a perk for something like that, but we're just going to rule that given the short nature of the jump that it is going to be what happens in this particular story. It is not going to be especially game-changing for Luciano the Jumper to, for the sake of one jump and for the context and time of one jump, take over the role of a character that already exists, especially since Luciano the Jumper has already done this before with the Shrek jump, which was a much more long and story intensive jump. So Luciano the Jumper will manifest in a older than they are used to corporeal form, probably in their mid-50s, which is the oldest that they've ever been physically, although they are in fact considerably older than that at this particular point in time. And they are going to have just enough time to study their materials and to see how everything works before Luigi himself appears at the mansion and has his fateful first encounter with a ghost. For those of you who do not remember, or for those of you who've never played Luigi's Mansion, Luigi enters the mansion completely unarmed. He is noticed by Professor Egad, at least if I'm remembering correctly, and he goes into the mansion unarmed and unaware of the fact that the mansion is inhabited by ghosts, because it was something that he supposedly won in a contest. In case it's not clear from my wording, he did not win this in a contest, or at least he didn't win it in a contest that he actually participated in. The contest was rigged and was a trap designed to lure him into the mansion, so that way he could be sucked up and transformed into something that would be less fun than being alive. So he goes into the mansion. Mario supposedly has already visited the mansion and in actuality has already been captured by the central antagonist of this particular video game. And when he goes into the mansion, he has enough time to meet one of the toads that has appeared in the mansion and to have a conversation with the toad, because the toad either came along with Mario or came after Mario, and upon not being able to find him, decided to stay and wait for help. The help came in the form of Luigi, the person who actually won the mansion, kind of. And when Luigi encounters the toad, he starts to realize that there is more to this mansion than meets the eye. Shortly after this, he goes up the stairs from the foyer and goes into the first room that he is going to spend some time in, and it is while he is here that he has a fateful encounter with a ghost. He does not know that these ghosts in particular are effectively immune to traditional fonts of harm, and almost meets a rather unfortunate end when he is saved in canon by Professor Egad, and in this particular story by Professor Luciano the Jumper, who appears out of nowhere with the weapon item, the vacuum and flashlight combo that is devastating to ghosts. In this particular jump, Luciano does not have a fiat-backed version of the anti-ghost weapons, but Luciano does not need any of those particular things. I'm going to say that during the 24 hours that Luciano was preparing, they used a combination of meta-knowledge, their speed, their research and memories in jump from the fact that they have been outside of the mansion and have encountered ghosts before, which is a canon fact for Professor Egad, that they are going to have enough know-how to be able to put together a non-fiat backed version of the combination of technologies that allow them and then Luigi to be able to hunt ghosts. So they save Luigi, they take Luigi back to their home, and it is during this point when they train Luigi. Luigi proves to be a quick study, and this version of Professor Egad, even though he has drawbacks that even though they have drawbacks that allow them to that prevent them from doing things like jumping, none of their drawbacks actually prevent them from using their super speed. So that is something that Luciano the Jumper is fully going to take advantage of. They are going to train Luigi. They are going to take advantage of the fact that they have perks here that now make them a good teacher at the things that they do, which include there in this particular jump, in-jump origin skills of being able to hunt ghosts. Professor Egad in canon was able to hunt ghosts by himself before he encountered Luigi, and played an important role in the backstory and lore of the Luigi's Mansion series. So it is not beyond the realm of possibility that Luciano the Jumper, Professor Luciano the Jumper, is capable of using some of their new perks in particular to be able to teach Luigi faster than they would otherwise. So Luigi, armed with knowledge, is going to go along with Professor Luciano the Jumper back into the mansion, and the two of them are going to combine their skills to become a more effective ghost hunting team. There is not any particular special mission that Luciano the Jumper has here, but Luciano the Jumper does want to be thorough in their escapades, and they do want to get as much as they possibly can out of this particular setting. So they are going to methodically take their time and assist Luigi in doing their very best possible. There is no particular super interest here for Luciano the Jumper. One of the big reasons why I wanted to select this jump was because we have now hit the point where it is safe for us to begin diversifying LTJ's skill sets. Up until a couple of jumps ago, LTJ was an entirely physical jumper who, while they had a handful of primarily physical-based superpowers, such as beyond peak human speed and strength, speed in particular, as well as telekinesis, they did not have any, or at least they did not have a huge number of magical abilities. They also didn't have any sort of super intelligence specifically perks, although we could assume that they were beyond peak human intelligence at this point, just as a matter of course by having all of their other stats be so high that logically their the rest of their stats probably also went beyond peak humanity. Although I do think that with Professor Egad's intelligence overall, it is probably safe to assume that LTJ has passed peak humanity in terms of regular human intelligence. And certainly in the realm of studying, researching, and coming up with ways to counter the supernatural. Those particular sorts of perks, which include some of LTJ's new perks, is going to be very handy when it comes to this particular jump, which only lasts a short while. So Luciano and Luigi, L and L, are going to have a fun time as they explore the different areas of Luigi's Mansion. They are going to have no serious problems or complications when they go across the entirety of the very first area of the game, which culminates in a battle against a baby ghost, which is honestly surprisingly dark for this game. This is not the darkest thing that this game will have to offer, but it is certainly morbid that the very first area major overarching boss is a baby. It definitely kind of sucks that there is a mother and father and then a baby ghost. These are also not the only children ghosts in this game, but even though I can't remember the very specific names of the bosses, I can definitely remember some of the overarching details. There is a male ghost who is in a library slash study slash office space, and then there is a female ghost, a wife ghost, who is in a bedroom who is tending to her hair. And then after the two of them in the first area, you face a baby in their cradle, which uses eldritch magics to transform you and shapeshift you, making you shrink so that way the baby is gargantuan, as well as sucking you into the cradle so that way you can have a climactic final for the area boss. Luciano and Luigi have no serious problems in this particular area. None of the drawbacks that we have taken have been significant enough to actually meaningfully stymie or even particularly hurt us in this particular jump. Especially not in this specific area. So after doing this, we are going to go ahead and advance over to the second area of the game. We go from climbing up the stairwell to going directly underneath the stairwell and going into an area on the first floor of the mansion. And now we are going to talk about the second zone of the game. We are going to continue our little adventure by proceeding into the hallway, which constitutes the second area of the game. It is here where the story begins to become a little bit more fleshed out and a lot more lore is revealed. Over the course of the next, I want to say, probably hour or so, and at this point evening has certainly fallen in full over the mansion, Luigi and Luciano are going to take their time and methodically explore and clear out the area until they come across the room, which has a poster in it, and then they are going to activate the switch here. Activating the switch here is what sets the actual plot of the second act of the game in motion, as the switch is an area which contains thousands of boos. It actually only contains 50 in the game, but we are going to say that it contains thousands of boos, and Luigi and Luciano actually have a battle with the boos originally, although many escape, that culminates with the two of them capturing a healthy portion of the boos again. Although major players such as King Boo and Bolossus will either escape during this confrontation or will have already been haunting certain parts of the mansion. For the sake of the story, it's not especially important which of these two different ideas is true and wins out, so we will end up saying that odds are Bolossus, the boos that comprise Bolossus, which is a massive conglomerate of boos that have formed into one super boo, rather than a single boo that is of enormous size or anything like that, will escape from this, but King Boo will have already been escaped and is going to be the primary driver of the plot, which I believe is the canon explanation for the game's events anyway. I don't remember everything about the canon plots, but during this time, the majority of the ghosts are recaptured. However, a certain number of especially powerful and unique boos are going to be able to successfully escape. This is going to be due to a number of things. There are a number of different ways that this particular confrontation could have played out. For example, if the boos had been affected by something like, I believe it's called the Inverse Ninja Law, which is a perk from Kill Bill, where more enemies that confront you at one time, and the more vastly you are outnumbered, the weaker the enemies enemies become in proportion to yourself. It is something that has an effect that goes beyond a vaguely similar perk from Generic Fist, wherein the number of enemies is not important. So long as enemies cannot individually defeat you, they will not be able to defeat you in groups, although I believe that that perk works by changing the ways that their mind works so that they only attack you one at a time rather than actually swarming you with numbers, which would be the logical thing to do. The inverse ninja law, although it might also be the inverse ninja effect, has the effect of weakening your enemies and actually punishing people who try to swarm you in numbers. It is an incredibly significant perk, and we are absolutely going to be getting it in the near-ish future, although I do not know precisely when we are going to be going to visit Kill Bill. So that said, when this battle happens, Luigi and Luciano together are able to defeat the vast majority of the boos, and the remaining 50 or so are able to successfully escape. That number is certainly less than half of the boos that were actually originally captured here. Just for the sake of making things interesting, this battle actually took a number of hours, and it led Luciano and Luigi to parts of the mansion that they had already revisited. They were being swarmed by the boos, which intended to defeat them, and these boos did operate under the normal boo laws of if you look at them, they will freeze, they will panic and freeze. That does not stop them from becoming vulnerable in this particular story when the vacuum, the poltergust, is used on them. I did look it up between the different segments of this video, so that way I would remember the name of the device and be able to refer to it by name. But this does mean that the remaining boos are specially powerful. The majority of the remaining night is going to be spent with Luciano and Luigi going from room to room that they've already explored, finding special boos that were hidden in each one, and Luciano the Jumper being forced to utilize a handful of their special abilities to be able to more effectively hunt down the remaining boos. Some of the usages of these abilities include things like telekinesis being used to hurl objects at the boos, which will slow them down, although it does not actually stop them, so that way they cannot escape, and Luciano obviously being forced to use their super speed to help corner and contain the boos. Not all of these boos are vulnerable. Not all of these boos are just passively vulnerable to attacks like the boos in canon are. I am amplifying some of their abilities just to make it so that Luciano the Jumper does have to be put through the paces a little bit. I don't want this jump to be a complete sweep for Luciano the Jumper, although this is not a setting that has anything that could be especially challenging for Luciano the Jumper. So I'm not going to pretend that it is. I'm just going to make it a little bit more challenging for our lad. Luciano the Jumper has a great time hunting down several of these ghosts before Luciano and Luigi are able to resume exploring the mansion. The two of them are a bit more determined, and now they understand that what has happened to Mario is probably that Mario has been trapped somewhere in the mansion. This version of Luciano does have meta knowledge of Luigi's mansion, but they have been carefully guiding Luigi along. They have not revealed the depth of their meta knowledge. It's also worth noting that this version of Luciano is not a frail old man, although this is the oldest that Luciano has ever been in a jump, in their mid-50s presumably. So it is not beyond the realm of possibility that in a world where Luigi and Mario are capable of superhuman feats, that there would be someone else too. Luciano has been careful to mostly be a mentor and guide and partner to Luigi, and has not focused on being the primary hero of this story, which is something that they have been enjoying. They have delighted in the fact that they are not the central overarching hero here, but rather are a supporting character who is focused on guiding their companion. The two of them have more and more encounters with different ghosts, and they defeat a number of the special ghosts that have been in this particular area, including people like, I believe, Neville, the large lad who enjoys spicy spaghetti, Melody, who is a musician, Jeeves the butler. I'm probably misremembering some of these names, but as long as you can remember more or less the people that I'm talking about, I'm fine with me not being able to remember every single canon detail here. They do defeat the second area ghost, and then they return to the mansion as they return to the high-tech research lab to turn them all into portraits. For those of you who do not know the precise lore here, the professor was someone who, among other things, among being an inventor and a researcher of the supernatural, they were an active ghost hunter, and they did successfully capture numerous special ghosts. The ghosts that are put through the ghost portrification device are in fact special ghosts that the professor has captured, that were released by King Boo at the beginning of the story, or at the very least shortly after the beginning of the story. I will say that that was one of the first things that happened before Luciano the Jumper became Professor Luciano the Jumper. It feels very funny to say that out loud. So, over the course of the rest of the adventure, the Luigi and Luciano are going to methodically explore the rest of the mansion. They are going to grab more and more clues. They are going to be helped by a fortune teller who is a very pleasant, special character who is, in this particular adventure, if I remember correctly, the only ghost that is a homie. Although I know for a fact that in future installments in Luigi's Mansion series, there are other ally ghosts, and there are other less hostile ghosts that are just more interested in doing their own thing, as opposed to are being actively malicious. But in this particular adventure, the only ghost ally that they have, as certainly the only ghost ally that the two of them have, is the fortune teller lady, who is able to reveal to them that Mario has been captured and has been trapped, and that the only way to save Mario is to continue their exploration of the mansion and eventually defeat the malignant evil that lies at the heart of this manor. So over the course of the remainder of the evening, the two of them do just that. They explore, they encounter ghost after ghost. They eventually do defeat Colossus in a major confrontation that involves going after several amped up boos, the only way of which to damage is to use some of their own projectiles against them. Obviously, when you are dealing with a speedster who can reflect your attacks in a wide range of ways, and who has super invented two particularly handy devices like the poltergeist and the very fun flashlight item, which is just a regular flashlight as far as I can remember, you are pretty much shit out of luck. So when Colossus encounters the lads, even though Colossus is a special ghost who is amped up and has an array of talents, they simply are not able to do as well as they would otherwise be able to do, because this really was the worst possible matchup for them. So when the battle is settled, all of the boos that make up Colossus have been defeated, and Colossus lies trapped in the different poltergeists. The two of them return back to the high-tech laboratory one more time. They go through the ghost portrification device, and then they begin their final search. At this point, it is probably only 3:45 in the morning. The sun is going to begin to peak up soon, at least as far as they can tell. They do not know, and they do not want to know what will happen if they have to spend another evening in the mansion. So the two of them are determined. At this point, it is when Luciano reveals everything and lays their cards out on the table. The two of them are determined to go through everything. Luciano uses their the art of the deal perk, the art of the deal item, which is the item that allows them to teach other people some of their perks. They use enhanced super speed to speed up the process, probably partially injuring themselves for the remainder of this jump, making it so they're just a touch slower in preparation for the final battle. And then the two of them make their way up to the roof. The roof is the final lair of the King Boo in this version of the story. I'm not sure how in canon that is, because I'm pretty sure that they actually get transported there when they encounter King Boo in the canon story, or at the very least that Luigi gets transported there right before the final battle begins, when Luigi is facing King Boo on his own. This is when the plot begins to get a little weird, because King Boo has managed to possess either Bowser or a Bowser suit and uses that to do battle with Luigi. Over the course of the battle, Luigi is able to defeat King Boo, and backed by Luciano the Jumper, the two of them are very easily able to dispatch their final enemy. It does take a little bit longer than it would otherwise because Luciano does not have enough time to teach Luigi super speed in any particular way, shape, or form, but rather teaches him some of the other handy perks that they possess, such as having the constitution of the ogre, actually not having the constitution of the ogre, having the constitution of a werewolf and having a werewolf's regeneration speed and things like that, as well as having a werewolf's ghost sight, because werewolves, at the very least the version of werewolf that Luciano does have the ability to see spirits, because they can see animating energy, which is present in everything that can move of its own volition and its own accord, including ghosts and spirits. So the two of them are able to see through an array of illusions. They're able to fight their way up to the lair of King Boo. They are able to see Mario in the portrait in person, and then from there they are able to have their dramatic final confrontation with King Boo. And armed with the knowledge that they have, as well as the high-tech devices that they wield, the two of them are able to bring King Boo low. They are able to absorb King Boo, capturing him into their poltergusts, even weakening him enough to keep him split into multiple ghosts, as opposed to being just one large ghost, which he is in canon. I'm just gonna say that this is a fun story thing rather than any sort of canon thing, so that way in the future it will be far more difficult for King Boo to escape, because King Boo was able to overcome Gad in the canon storyline. At the very least, King Boo was able to subvert Gad's technology and was able to use that to free the different ghosts. Professor Luciano the Jumper wants to prevent that from happening, and so they are able to defeat the ghost, put them into the ghost portrification device, save Mario and save the day. And over the course of the adventure, they have acquired a wide range of money. They're going to keep some of the money for themselves, and they are going to put it in their personal reality, but they're going to give the overwhelming majority of it to Luigi, so that way Luigi can have the super fun effect of having the perfect ending to this game, which, for those of you who don't know, is dependent on, among other things, how much money you collect. If you collect enough money, you'll start to be able to build I believe it's like a little tent, and then a house, and then a manor, and then if I remember correctly, it is the actual manor that you just explored, but without the ghosts, if you are able to get the perfect ending. So Luciano the Jumper is going to give Luigi just enough of the money that they made on their adventure, so that way they could get that perfect ending. So when the story comes to a close, Luigi is standing in front of the perfect mansion all by themselves, because at this point, Luciano the Jumper has definitely already gone to their next adventure. However, our chain is going to be continuing. We are going to be continuing the overarching stories that we've been doing. I am so excited to have been able to have this little adventure. I do like that we made it a little bit different from in canon, not just because of my inability to remember every single aspect of the story of this first adventure, but also just because we wanted to make it just a little bit more challenging. So we didn't add any extra special drawbacks or anything, but rather we just had a fun time exploring and making certain enemies, such as Boos, both more numerous and more powerful. Obviously, over the course of the final little leg of the journey, Luciano and Luigi were having fun and were also capturing Boos along the way, in some cases even capturing Boos in the dark, which is a little different from how the Boos play out in the game. Normally, at the very least for the majority of the early Boos that you encounter them in rooms that have already been cleared out, and they will only come out if the room has been cleared out and the lights have been turned on, which is a gameplay mechanic that signifies when the room is safe to explore. For the most part, there are some ghosts that can still spawn in lit rooms, such as Boos, but they are very, very, very rare. So once you have cleared out a room, normally the only hazards in the room are yourself, but we will say that some of the boos that they encountered, in addition to having special properties, were able to withstand the darkness and were able to come out while the two lads were facing down other ghosts. So that way things are just a little bit more action packed in some of the later rooms. But we have now finished this little story time. I am working on using new technology, so if this video seems and feels different, that is why. We are going to be going into some more serious jumps in the future, but I do really like that we now have super genius perks and inventor perks and also researching perks. I think that all of these things are going to play a critical role in future jumps, especially when we start to visit spooky jumps, which I'm excited for us to do. I hope that you all have a wonderful day. I cannot wait to see you again. Let's go on and have many more adventures together, friends. Bye-bye.